Hi, this is Sandy Botkin, CPA, attorney, and president of the Tax Reduction Institute, of which I have a website by that name. You know, there's a day called Taxpayer Freedom Day, which is the day that the average person who's watching this has to work to pay off their taxes, federal, state, and local taxes. And it depends on the state you're in and how much you're paying, how much you're earning. But generally, Taxpayer Freedom Day, if you look at it on the web, is April 9th, which means that 109 days out of 365, or 30% of what you make, goes out in taxes alone, and it could be more. Now in debt, which is other committed money, and I'm including all debt, education debt, mortgage debt, car loans, personal loans, generally somewhere between 20 and 30% of what you make goes out in some kind of debt service. Well, if you add up those two numbers, and I'll take the lower of the two, roughly 50% of what you make is committed between taxes and debt, which leaves 50% for everything else. Everything else being education for your kids, retirement, medical, lifestyle, everything. So if you wonder why you can't get ahead, now you know why. In addition, there was a study done by Harvard that estimates that 4% of all people who retire at age 65 can retire with the same standard of living they had before retirement, which means 96% of everybody else has to reduce their standard of living, live on some form of charity, or keep working. How would you like to be in the top 4%? If you listen to me, you take what I'm going to say to heart in this YouTube video or on this Facebook video, you will become rich. And by the way, I also have a Facebook, facebook.com/lower your taxes, which I recommend as a new blog every day on that. But here's the point. You know, as a tax lawyer, I get to meet very wealthy people. Let's face it, the homeless don't come to me. And would you agree that to become multimillionaires or multi-billionaires, they think a little differently than the average person? So what do they think like? Number one, they have a tremendous belief system. So if they fall down or if they have a hard day, they can overcome it. And, you know, it's funny. I was listening to Jack Canfield, who is the author of Chicken Soup of the Soul. And he said that most people honestly don't believe that they deserve to be rich. And I actually heard a lady who won a lottery say that. I have an exercise I want you to do every single day of your life. I do it, and I want you to do it. I want you to point to yourself. And while you're watching this, do that. And I want you to say, I deserve to be rich. Do that. Then I want you to point yourself and say, I want to be rich. Do that every single day of your life, and I promise you it'll overcome a lot of problems. If you have a hard time with clients, hard time marketing, it'll help you. Secondly, most multimillionaires never ask themselves if they can afford it. If you're saying that, you will not be rich. But what they do say to themselves is it worth it? And there's a little formula that they use, and this is the formula you may want to write down. It's called big money is simply mathematical. Big money is simply mathematical. Now what that means is this. Let's say I have an investment that's $1,000. I don't have a $1,000 investment, but let's assume I did. But you will get $10,000 on that investment every year for the next 10 years. Would you pay that $1,000 if it's realistic? Sure, all day long. If you didn't say yes, something's wrong. Let's say it's $1,000, but you only get $10,000 a year for 2 years. Would you still pay the $1,000? Of course. The point is, if you can get more money back than you pay in, it's a good deal. And that's why they say big money is simply mathematical. Third thing, you might have heard that knowledge is power. That's a huge myth. It's the biggest myth in the United States. The real point is applied knowledge is power. If you don't take advantage of the information that you learned, that's as bad as not knowing it altogether. You've got to apply it. Number 4, get luck. Now, a lot of people think, oh, I got to get lucky. Luck is an acronym. It stands for labor under correct knowledge. Every wealthy person I know studies their subject so they really understand how to make money. And they always have a good mentor. And that's number 5. Get a good mentor. I want someone I can relate to, someone I understand, and someone who knows the material. That's what a good mentor is. If they're successful, you know, it's the old saying, if you want to fly like an eagle, you don't hang around with turkeys. So you want to associate with successful people who are mentors. Big thing, this was in The Millionaire Next Door by a guy named Denko. Most multimillionaires did something that most people didn't do. They were savers. They saved a minimum of 10% of what they made, and they never touched that money until retirement. That is critical, and they lived on the other 90%. In fact, it's interesting. If you put away $7,000 a year in an average performing mutual fund for 30 years, you know that's worth $1 million? Just putting it away in the fund. If you do it for 40 years, it's worth almost $3 million. Savers become players, and you want to save a minimum of how much? 10% of what you make every year, and you never touch that money for retirement. And finally, take tax planning seriously. Every major multimillionaire I've ever said that. The reason is that we have 2 tax systems. One is for employees, which is designed to take your wealth. And if you're a worker bee, that's exactly the situation. You're taxed on $1. But the other is for self-employed individuals. Because if you're self-employed, you can write off part of your house, your spouse, the equivalent of your kids' education and weddings. You can set up a pension plan that makes any government plan paltry by comparison. The tax benefits of being in business are enormous. And let's say that business generates a loss. You can use that loss against any form of income you have. Interest, dividends, wages, rents, pensions, anything. If the loss exceeds your income for the year, you can carry it back 2 years and get a refund from the federal and state government for the last 2 years of taxes that you pay. If you're in Canada, you can carry it back 3 years. Or you can carry forward all business losses up to 20 years and offset the next 20 years of earnings. So you never lose a properly documented business deduction. All you have to do is run your business like a business, not like a hobby. And the final thing is that it is the best residual form of income in the world is tax planning. You know, when you hear residual, most people think, well, I work once and then I can get paid year after year. What's an example of residual income? Well, book writing, oil wells. Problem with book writing is only 1 in 5,000 books get published and 1 in 100 of those make money. Oil wells, you don't always hit money. You don't always hit oil. But with tax planning, you paid taxes last year, right? You're probably going to pay taxes this year. With a $14 trillion deficit, you're probably going to pay even more taxes next year. So if you get a good idea in taxes, it'll save you money this year, next year, the year after that, and forever. It is the best form of residual income in the world, and if you don't take it seriously, you are ignoring what almost every single multimillionaire has said. So the bottom line is, if you want to get rich, here's what you got to do. Get that belief system. Do that exercise that I deserve to be rich and I want to be rich. Always ask yourself, is it worth it? You've got to have the belief system to say, is it worth it? Big money is simply mathematical. Remember that. Apply knowledge. Now is the best time to buy things, like in real estate. Don't listen to the nonsense with the newspapers. This is the best time to take action. Luck, labor under correct knowledge. Learn your trade. Learn what you got to do. Get a good mentor who is successful. Save at least how much? 10% of what you make, and take tax planning very seriously. If you listen to me, I will make your life less taxing, and I promise I will make you rich. Go to my facebook.com/lower your taxes for more tips, or my website, taxreductioninstitute.com, to get much more wealthy.